24 Hours of DXM by Joe Random on Erowid. 150 pounds, 500 milligrams, May 2001. I am 17 years old, and am a chronic cannabis smoker. My friend had been telling me that he had been trying DXM in the form of Ribidus Deutschmarks for a few months, and that he was getting 30 grams of pure DXM powder from a mail-order site he found in the internet. He convinced me to try it for the first time, in the form of a 500 mg capsule. I purchased that from him for $5, and decided I would take it that night, before I went to bed. I really had no idea how strong of a dose this was, and what it would do to me. At the most, I thought it would make me feel drunk, and maybe a little tripped out. I usually smoke a joint before I go to sleep, but I had decided against that this night, because I wanted a pure DXM experience. I had eaten Chinese food about 2 hours before, so I did not have any empty stomach. I took the pill around 10 p.m., thinking I could just go to sleep if I didn't like what happened to me. I then played around in my computer for 45 minutes, thinking that nothing was going to happen to me and that perhaps my friend had tricked me into buying a capsule of powdered sugar, or some other substance. Then, at about 10:50 I was hit very hard by sensations that everything was moving really slow and was pulsating. I no longer had interest in my computer, and I decided to lay down and try to go to sleep. I called another friend of mine and told him that I thought DXM was pretty cool, and he ought to try it. Almost immediately, after I hung up the phone, I began to feel sick in my stomach. I noticed that all my limbs felt very heavy, and that it was very difficult to move them. When I did manage to move a limb, or especially my head, my stomach felt very sick. Whenever I opened my eyes, my room spun around me in an array of flashing, pulsating, gold, yellow, green, and magenta lights. The whole time I was hearing deep, garbled human speech, and a consistent thud of drums beating. The combination of these effects was freaking me out, and I wanted it to all end right then. I considered waking my dad, who is the head of the local pollution control center, and telling him what I had done. I probably would have, if I could have gotten out of bed to tell him. I had no idea how long the trip would last, but every time I managed to open my eyes long enough to read my digital clock, time had only moved ahead 5 minutes. I thought that I had overdosed and that I was going to die, and I could feel my organs in my stomach grinding against each other. At about 12:30 a.m., I must have fallen asleep or went into a deep trip I don't recall, because I woke up at 2:30 a.m. feeling that I needed to go take a dump. The crazy noises were still there, but the flashing lights were all gone. When I got out of bed and tried to open my door, the door appeared to lean backwards to a 45-degree angle, and sprung back at me. I managed to make it to the toilet, and I took a dump, and right after I finished I vomited repeatedly. Because my whole face and the rest of my body felt numb, I couldn't taste the vomit, so I felt much better after this. Walking back to my room, I felt very good, and was extremely happy that I could finally go to sleep. When I woke up the next morning to my alarm clock, I felt wired. My eyes were wide open, and I felt as though low amounts of electricity were bustling through me, causing me to walk very fast with stiff legs. I went to school, and I made it through all my classes okay. My friends told me that I was shaking and staring at nothing for most of the day. By about 5 p.m. I was beginning to think that I had done permanent brain damage to myself, and that I was always going to be like that. At 10 p.m., I smoked a joint with a friend, and this helped tremendously to calm my nerves, and it rid me of the other symptoms as well. I learned from this experience that I should not have done such a high dosage my first time, and that I should have learned more about what I was doing before I did it. If I were to do it again, I would probably refrain from eating beforehand, and I would probably choose a time when I wasn't about to go to sleep and I had someone to talk to tell me I wasn't going to die. I think if I was more aware of what was going to happen, I could have controlled the trip better and enjoyed it a lot more. Retrospective report by Joe Random, 15 years later. Reading this report 15 years later, the first thing I think about the most is what the social consequences would have been for me if my parents had found out. Years later, as an adult I did discuss my drug experiences with my dad, but if he would have found out about it then things would have been rough between us. I do still remember that night, but not very vividly, and reading the report now isn't much different than reading someone else's report. It has only a vague personal sense of connection to me and I don't recall the hallucinogenic details at all. While it seemed really bad at the time, it quickly became something humorous to look back on. I certainly didn't have any sort of traumatic negative results to my psyche as a result. There's also a sense of accomplishment. I did something crazy and scary, and got away with it and really expanded my world as a result. I ended up taking numerous other psychedelics after this, including DXM again quite a few times, but I never again took DXM at this high of a dose. Future DXM usage was mostly with Carlos Diurex. That stuff was a lot of fun, easy to get, and easy to dose. I mostly had good trips, but there were times on other substances that I got anxiety about the trip going too far. I think it's just part of my nature to worry a bit too much. I have a family now, mortgage, real job and all that, and I still really enjoy psychedelics and I'm glad I experimented with them when I was younger. They definitely changed my perspective in things for the better. I think, as an adult I'm more aware of other people's feelings, and of the ephemeral nature of my own feelings and my own perception of reality. Despite this difficult experience, DXM helped me get into psychedelics and got me comfortable taking others that I now find more enjoyable, tryptamines. At this point, I would never take DXM at psychoactive levels again. It was a sort of challenge and exploration thing that doesn't need to be repeated. I'm proud to have contributed in this very small way to Erowid.